Okay, yeah. Okay. So let me now go to YouTube and share the link and then I will start. Right? Yeah, I think I'm able to see that it's live.
Okay.
Hare Krishna. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Shri Prabhupada, Sri Guru and Gauranga. Very good morning. Thank you so much for this opportunity to read and discuss Srimad Bhagavatam. We will begin with invocation prayers. Om Agnanatimirandhasya Gnananjanashalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhishtam Sthapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamsya Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunadhanvitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadhutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakhanvitamscha He Krishna Karuna Sindho Dinabandho Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Rishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriye वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः नमः ॐ विष्णुपादाय कृष्णप्रेष्ठाय भूतले श्रीमते भक्तिवेदान्त स्वामिनिति नामिने नमस्ते सारस्वते देवे गौरवाणी प्रचारिणे निर्विशेष शून्यवादी पाश्चात्यदेशतारिणे जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधारा श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्ण 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 हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. We'll recite the invocation prayers for Srimad Bhagavatam, which actually gives us the whole entire progress of our journey on the devotional service. We'll pray that that journey and the faith in that process gets a little more deepened. Narayanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tato jayam udirayet shushusho shraddadhanasya vasudeva kadharuchi स्यान्महत् सेवया विप्रा पुण्यतीर्था निषेवनात् शृण्वतां स्वकथा कृष्ण पुण्यश्रवणकीर्तना हृदयन्तस्थो ह्यभद्राणि विधुनोति सुहृत्सताम् नष्टप्रायेषु अभद्रेषु नित्यं भागवत सेवया भगवती उत्तमश्लोके भक्तिर्भवति नैष्टिकी. Let's actually try to meditate on the meaning of these verses. तदा रजस्तमो भावा कामलोभादयश्च ये चेत एतैरनाविद्धं स्थितं सत्त्वे प्रसीदति एवं प्रसन्नमनसो भगवद्भक्तियोगतः भगवत्तत्त्वविज्ञानं मुक्तसङ्गस्य जायते भिद्यते हृदयग्रन्थिश्चिद्यन्ते सर्वसंशया क्षीयन्ते चास्य कर्माणि दृष्ट एवात्मनीश्वरे. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय. Shall I share the screen, Prabhu? It's not giving me the option, I think, for the verse. Yeah, I don't have the access. Okay. So I cannot show the...
There should not be any issue, Mother. You should have. You're the host now.
I'm on the phone. I'm not able to see. Okay. Sorry. Got it. Okay. Start broadcast. Okay. I think now I should be able to see. Aditya, are you looking at the screen? Are you able to see my screen?
We can see the screen.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. This is the Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 31, Lord Kapila's instructions on the movements of the living entities. And so far, we have heard how the living entity is going through this extremely painful and miserable condition inside the womb, and somehow or other has this understanding that I'm actually fallen into this condition, but I don't belong here. So they very ardently pray to the Supreme Lord, please help me get out of here. I'm not going to, I'll make sure I won't do anything which makes me come back to this position again. And after that, he comes out of the womb and then obviously gets lost in that process and trauma of the whole situation. But once he comes out, all the family members and everybody is like so loving and caring and affection, all that stuff. So they completely forget what their consciousness and what their prayers before. So this is just continuing their journey. This is Srimad Bhagavatam 3:31-30. Bhutai panchabhir arabdhe dehe dehi abhudo asakrit aham mameti asadgraha karoti kumatirmatim. Bhutai panchabhir arabdhe dehe dehi abhudo askrit aham mameti asadgraha karoti kumatirmatim. Word to word. Bhutai, by material elements. Panchabhi, 5. Arabdhe, made. Dehe, in the body. Dehi, the living entity. Abuddha, ignorant. Asakrit, constantly. Aham, I. Mama, mine. Iti, thus. Asat, non-permanent things. Graha, accepting. Karoti, he does. Kumati, being foolish. Matim, thought. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Shil Prabhupada Ki Jai. By such ignorance, the living entity accepts the material body, which is made of 5 elements, as himself. With this misunderstanding, he accepts non-permanent things as his own and increases his ignorance in the darkest region. Purport. The expansion of ignorance is explained in this verse. The first ignorance is to identify one's material body, which is made of 5 elements, as the self, and the second is to accept something as one's own due to a bodily connection. In this way, ignorance expands. The living entity is eternal, but because of his accepting non permanent things, misidentifying his interest, he is put into ignorance and therefore he suffers material pangs. So, this aham mameti, I and mine, as we keep hearing, probably we would have heard hundreds and thousands of times in our hearing. This is actually the key. But what's interesting is last night we were reading in Bhagavad Gita reading group, chapter 2. That's very, very encouraging and hope giving to understand the nature of the soul. Krishna says this material body, there is no chance that it doesn't change. It has to change and it has to perish one day. And on the contrast, soul is eternal. It never goes through any change and there is no death. So it's actually so beautiful in one sense, the living entity's position, because whatever is attached to the body, all the troubles, all the problems and situations with people and things, whatever it is, it's all related to this body, and the body is going to go anyway one day. So in one sense, they're not permanent, so we don't have to put our whole entire energy and consciousness into that, like, how do I get out of this, what do I do? Because with the time, things are going to change, people are going to change. But unfortunately, we think that is all in all and get so much completely pulled into that. And on the other hand, understanding the nature of the soul, it's just so encouraging, because we don't want to die. We don't want these relationships with the loving entities to abruptly stop. And when we understand on the spiritual platform, when we understand we are the spirit soul and these other living entities whom we have these affectionate relationships are also spirit souls, and that we can actually continue that relationship beyond this body. That's very, very encouraging and inspiring to actually start seeing on that platform. But unfortunately, we got it reversed. We forgot that we are the soul. So there we don't have the understanding that are about the eternality of our real being. And on the other hand, we are taking this temporary material body as all in all. So both ways, we are doomed in that sense. X31. Tadadham kurute karma yadbaddho yati samsmritim yonuyati dadat klesham avidya karma bandhana. Tadardham kurute karma yadbaddho yati samsmritim Yonuyati tadat klesham avidya karma bandhana. For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, and which follows him because he is bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities, he performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. Purport. In Bhagavad Gita, it is said that one has to work to satisfy Yajna or Vishnu. For any work done without the purpose of satisfying the Supreme Personality of Godhead is a cause of bondage. In the conditioned state, a living entity, accepting his body as himself, forgets his eternal relationship with the Supreme Personality of Godhead and acts on the interest of his body. He takes the body as himself, his bodily expansions as his kinsman, and the land from which his body is born as worshipable. In this way, he performs all sorts of misconceived activities, which lead to his perpetual bondage in repetition of birth and death in various species. So, this is something we keep hearing, how we need to act or work in relationship with the Lord and to satisfy Him. And we may even say that, at least when we start practicing devotional service and when we heard this enough times and have a little bit of understanding, we may even think, I'm actually doing this to please Krishna. To say that, like on the surface level. But if we look deep within our heart, we have to really, I mean, when I like try to do that, I'm like, okay, Amritakeli, I hear you. But what is actually within your heart, deep within your heart? Please be honest. Then we can see all these desires for like whatever fame, wealth, and want to be seen, recognized, and this and that. Yes, that might have transformed a little bit, and currently it may be a mix, which could be 100% selfish when we began devotional service. Now it might be for some of us 20 for satisfying Krishna and 80 for ourselves, or for somebody else, 80 for satisfying Krishna and 20 for our own personal motivations. But nevertheless, we have this. This is so deep, that wanting to do things in relationship to the body and the kinsman and whatnot. And uh, this is again, we were discussing last night the same topic, taking particularly the attachment to the kids and wanting to do for them. This Chitraketu's example came up. And then we were talking, this kid asking, which father, in which life are you talking about? When this son of Chitraketu died and he was revived to life, um, asking, your father is lamenting, please come back and be with him. And he's like, which father? Which life you're talking about? Of course, in one sense, that's an extreme example. But even in our case, while as parents, we have seen our parents, how much they have struggled and worked hard to actually take care of us and made us be where we are. Yeah, we may have, love and affection, but whatever, we have our own lives. We are busy with our own things. Maybe we call once in a week or twice in a week. Okay, how are you? Yeah, fine. I'm doing good. You're doing good. But other than that, it's just, we are getting on with our lives. And the same thing is going to happen to us tomorrow when we become old. Now we think like the whole entire day and night you work and you save and you do this, you do that for everything for kids. And they're like, once they're into teenagers, they don't want parents to be interfering with whatever they want to do. Okay, I understand. You have worked hard and you're giving me money, you're taking care of my necessities. But that doesn't mean that you have the right to control my activities, what I do, what I do not do. So, this is, in one sense, I was thinking that's actually good. Even though it's hard, it's painful for the parents to see that. But at least they're helping us to see the reality that how much ever we invest in this body and this bodily relationships, it has to move on. That's not what is going to stay with us or come with us. So when we understand that, while we shouldn't be neglecting our current duties, both to take care of our own body and the family and whatever occupational duties we are currently engaged in as our dharma, but at the same time, it's equally important for us to take that kind of a time and space to actually cultivate that connection with what is going to stay with us for good. That's something, if we can, start doing, probably for most of us who are like in 30s, 40s, we may have that little bit of a shift, probably in 20s, 30s, we may not realize, but once we reach 40s, 50s, it's like, geez, like, yeah, it's getting there and you don't know. I think once His Holiness Radhanath Maharaj, he says, 50 is like the yellow light. And after that, you don't know when the red light is going to come. Until the green light is there, you can keep going. But once the yellow light comes, you should be prepared to stop. So we should be prepared uh, to actually deepen the connection. It, it may not necessarily be more investing more time, but at least the consciousness and a little bit of seriousness in our personal sadhana, in our personal connection to whatever process of devotional service that gives us nourishment. And Prabhupada continues, in modern civilization, the so called social, national, and government leaders mislead people more and more under the bodily conception of life, with the result that all the leaders, with their followers, are gliding down to hellish conditions birth after birth. As an example is given in an example is given in Srimad Bhagavatam. Andha yatandhair upaniyamana. This is from Prahlad Maharaj's discussion. with Hiranyakashipu, his dad. He says, you won't be able to understand on your own. And when someone is like so engrossed in this materialistic life, he says, Grihamandha Kupam, like the dark well of material existence, when you are in that, you just can't understand, even if I tell you about this knowledge. And when he continues saying, people don't know their real self interest. They think they're selfish, but actually, they don't know what is their real self interest. And they just keep going after these temporary things. And unfortunately, people who don't know if they are leaders, they just lead all these blind followers blindly. And so everybody is going down to hellish conditions, birth after birth. It's like really uh, very dooming. Like, it just seems like there is no hope or no scope for light. Just understanding that. And we can see around ourselves the current leaders of very prominent nations. They don't have a clue what they're doing. And 70 or 80, they think that they are the most powerful and they can do this, that, whatever. I'm like, seriously? Can't you really think? Like, even when the body is deteriorating, uh, that identification is so strong that they just cannot see anything else. I was like, oh my goodness. When a blind man leads several other blind men, the result is that all of them fall down in a ditch. This is actually happening. There are many leaders to lead the ignorant public, but because every one of them is bewildered by the bodily conception of life, there is no peace and prosperity in human society. How many wars? For what purpose? It's completely to satisfy their own egoistic agenda. Like they could put so many of these innocent public people into such condition. They just have to leave their homes and whatnot. They just don't know, no certainty what's going to happen, when the other country is going to bomb them. It's just so insane if you think about it. There is no peace and prosperity in human society. So called yogis who perform various bodily feats are also in the same category as such ignorant people, because of the Hatha Yoga system is especially recommended for persons who are grossly implicated in the bodily conception. Same thing, people just go to yoga classes, this and that, but without really understanding what is the real purpose. Just I want to look young or look beautiful, do this, do that, just so I can have more vacation time. I can post pictures on whatever, Instagram, Facebook, this and that. But we're totally missing out on the real thing. The conclusion is that as long as one is fixed in the bodily conception, he has to suffer birth and death. Prabhupada is concluding with a super strong statement. The conclusion is, as long as we are in this bodily conception, we have to suffer this birth and death. We'll read this translation one more time. For the sake of the body, which is a source of constant trouble to him, it's a constant source of trouble, but still we do everything keeping that at the center, and which follows him because he's bound by ties of ignorance and fruitive activities. He performs various actions which cause him to be subjected to repeated birth and death. Krishna. So we will stop there and see any reflections, thoughts, questions. Thank you for joining this morning. It's a straightforward second chapter Bhagavad Gita verse, but it's beautiful to revisit and hear it again and again, because the whole essence of this chapter, many of us were discussing, when the living entity was able to pray so sincerely, so genuinely, how is it that they can forget and get into this life, materialistic life again. That's the nature when we are under this Maya. It's just so powerful that it can just suck us. So we need this kind of reminders again and again and again until it gets really deep and we say, okay, now I get it. I'm done. I just don't want to go back and fall into this again. Yeah. So it's nice in that sense. Thank you. Any thoughts, reflections?
Hare Krishna, Mataji.
Hare
Uh,
Krishna.
Thank you so much for sharing. I was, when you mentioned about how little control we have even over our dependence. That was
Yeah.
that's interesting. It's interesting that even as a baby, forget teenager, right? Even as a baby, like a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, like you want the child to do something, but it has a mind of its own, obviously, because that's a free will soul. And time and time again in our life, we see that we have very little control over circumstances. However, there's also fleeting glimpses or fleeting times when things actually go the way we ordained it or we planned it, and we get carried over. We get carried by um, that fleeting sense of control, fleeting sense of happiness. um, and yeah, you're right. At the end of the day, it is these reminders, day in and day out, that helps ground us every single day. So thank you. And again, was a good Srimad Bhagavad Gita class.
Thank you, Prabhu. Yeah, not only 2 years or 3 years, right? That's a nice point. Even when the baby is like young, like, I mean, just born, the mom and dad and the grandparents, everybody's schedule just, revolves around this child when they're like up, when they sleep, when they want to, be fed. It's just like, the tiny living entity who is just come into this material world has so much control on the parents. What to speak of the toddlers and teenagers and whatnot. Yeah, yeah,
Indeed, yeah, it's interesting.
yeah. Thank you. Yeah, I was also appreciating this verse here in the third canto, and we were reading sixth canto, Chitraketa's story, in Bhagavatam reading and Bhagavad Gita reading second chapter. There is so much of that synergy. And it's not just a random repetition of this concept from different angles, from different scenarios and circumstances through different life examples. Srimad Bhagavatam is actually teaching us in different ways. So I'm really appreciating the synergy and the way the Shastra is presenting this, just so our view can gradually transform. And so we would be able to see through the Shastra Chakshu instead of, our own whatever filters we had for material vision. Yeah, yeah. Okay, if no other reflections, thank you so much for joining, and you all have a wonderful Krishna conscious day.
Thank you so much. Hare Krishna.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
Ki Jai, Srila Prabhupada ki Jai. Hare Krishna.